Hello and welcome to Signal Shift with me, Raakhee and Sue. If you happen to be a teen, or if you even have an elder teen in your home, there's a high chance there's a big question on your mind. Is a four-year college degree worth it? While this question has always been lurking in the US, where the cost of a degree is simply put pretty ridiculous, there have been other options, right? Specialized, smaller online schools, and community colleges as options. But the truth is now we are very much in an AI first world. These are some sentiments of Americans that were collected and surveyed and are shared by the Pew Research Center. And I found this really interesting. So only 1 in 4 US adults says it's extremely or very important to have a four-year college degree to get a well-paying job in today's economy. As the world sits now, okay, only 1 in 4, okay. So 3/4 don't think it's important. Roughly half, okay, 49% say it's less important to have a four-year college degree today in order to get a well-paying job than it was 20 years ago. I think most of us would have that same sentiment and agree, right? The world has shifted so much. Only 22% say the cost of getting a four-year college degree is worth it, even if someone has to take out loans. Naturally, that's a small percentage, right? Only 22% are willing to take such a big risk and such a big bet on a college degree as it stands now. I mean, some of the reasons that we study is, of course, pay. It's just career prospects in general, right? To improve our careers. And the third is for personal growth, right? Simply to learn, because it's important to you personally. And that's really a small percentage when you look at the reasons why people study. I thought this was also really interesting from the research that Pew had done, but as is the case for both young men and for young women who do not have college degrees. When it comes to poverty, in 2014, 31% of women who just had a high school diploma and who lived independently from their parents were in poverty. By 2023, that share had fallen to 21%. So, there's sort of a decrease in those correlations between college degree and poverty as well. Now, of course, anyone with a college degree, as it still stands right now, is still much less likely to be in poverty than their counterparts with less education and, of course, more pay. That's how it's historically been, and that's what it looks like today. But every study, every report is always talking about the past, where we've been, what education has done, where the economy has been, what jobs exist today. So I feel like there's a big gaping question really around this. The very reasons why we study, I think, are things to be questioned now. That's the topic we are covering today. So I'll throw it to you, Sue. What's been coming up for you on this?
Thanks, Raakhee. Yeah, this is a really important subject as we're moving forward because there's a big question and big costs attached to getting these post-secondary degrees, right? And we've talked a little bit about badging and micro-credentialing before, and I think this topic just opened my eyes to how big the market is and how seriously people are taking this. Whereas, a decade ago, it was just sort of the side thing as MOOCs were coming online and people were starting to figure out what other education they could get. Thought, oh, you're still going to have to go to college. But it's interesting that even now universities are starting to get, they're creating micro-credentialing strategy as well, just because it's that important. So Coursera, of course, another MOOC, right? They actually released a micro-credential impact report. And it said, it's showing just how important this is, even if you do get a four-year degree, because 96% of employers are saying that micro-credentials will strengthen a candidate's job application. 9 of 10 say they would actually pay a higher starting salary to them, and also more would actually hire maybe a less experienced candidate, but who has a generative AI credential over someone with more experience, but doesn't have that credential. So I thought that was super interesting. They also mentioned that universities are evolving too. So now 53% of those surveyed said they're offering micro-credentials as credit-bearing options. And 82% say they intend to do so in the next few years. So this is really, really important. It will change how people view even what college is, right, going forward. Interestingly, though, you're talking about some of the social skills, maybe some of the social connections that you could get at college. Even with these micro-credentials and things, they say 7 of 10 employer surveyed said that the soft skills is the top gap among all new graduates, followed by tech skills. So it's interesting because at least Coursera was implying you can get sort of soft skills by taking these micro-credential courses like communication, like project management, I don't know, things like that. So I was wondering, are they implying that you're just not getting that at college anymore? So I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, I wonder if we'll tackle this later in one of our series, but it didn't mention any breakdown on Coursera because I was really curious, is this particularly for new graduates and the college age set? Or is it also true for more seasoned workers, say those in their 40s and above who are maybe looking either at upskilling or reskilling career transitions? And is it enough to overcome things like ageism or not having a 4-year degree? So as we're moving into more of a skills-based economy, I think this certification, the credentialing, badging will become much more important. So yeah, so that's what I found.
I think you've highlighted, which maybe people aren't aware, is the extent to which it's grown, like you said, in a decade. So that is really fascinating to hear. Yeah, it's definitely, it's kind of sits in the realm. My second signal, I want to talk about it a bit as well, and we can get into it more. And I'm so curious to know what micro-credential you'd love to take. What would be on your list?
Yeah, I mean, I got to jump on the bandwagon. Like, I feel like if I don't take this generative AI, any type of generative AI course, like, I think I'll be far behind if I don't catch up to it. Now, I think I'm more interested in the human design aspect of AI versus sort of the coding implications and the tech behind it, but more of the societal implications. What about you?
That's exciting, but yeah, no, exactly, Sue. It's, the way I see it is that anything you want to learn, like say you do want to learn accounting now, you got to take the accounting plus AI course. You have to learn those two together, right? Everything that we do, AI is now foundational, as it was learning how to use a computer or Microsoft Word or Excel 20, 30 years ago, right? It's exactly that. It's foundational. So I'll jump into my signal and kind of put themes to my signal. So the theme of the signal is lecture halls have to be converted. And so here's the backstory, right? Is basically we're going to see greater digitization. Nobody's arguing that. It's going to be faster and cheaper to learn independently and online, right? And with the use of AI. A lot of people, yes, even young kids in those 4-year degrees are going to opt to choose a lot of things to learn at home and by themselves, right? And with AI, not really this lecturer teaching them in front of a big classroom. So I don't know what was the biggest class when you were in your first year of university, but Econ 1 was a big class, right? Econ 101. Like everybody had to take economics. I used to be in those massive halls, right? It's probably already gone, and it's definitely gone in the future because it's not effective for learning like that. But I think there's some interesting things that are happening at the same time. It's not just tech and AI. There's geopolitics, right? If we look at what's happening in terms of international students and which countries they choose to, that is changing even in the US and in other places as well, right? Talk about climate change. Places that maybe, seem like great places to be may not be inhabitable because of the climate. Even amazing places like Dubai that are building all these incredible things, it is so incredibly hot there. And I think that goes into the choice of whether I want to study there or I want to be there. And I think the same will work for places where there's going to be typhoons, tornado storms. We kind of forget about that, but climate's going to impact every part of life, and education is going to be one of them, right? And I think the complete restructure of what work we do and what percentage of our population is going to even engage in that work. And then we spoke about this with schools, if you remember a while back, but falling birth rates, right? which countries and how many students are going to have to go. So these big universities where people are coming in Monday to Friday at time for lectures, I think that whole concept dissipates. And that's why this idea of, lecture halls have to be converted. And I think you mentioned this, and exactly what you were saying is, okay, people are going to learn online, but what about these social skills and all the human stuff? And I think what will happen is, if universities are smart, and I'm sure they will be, is they're going to convert that. And we're not going to see these big lecture halls. We're going to see more labs. We're going to see more open factory style kind of different groups working on things, right? Because I think, one, we also need more collaboration. To work siloed anymore just doesn't work. Everything is too complex, so we have to come together. I think, like you mentioned, with the micro-credentials, is going to be more skills-based learning, right? Short cohorts come in for short things. I think research, science, all of those things, it's going to be about that. You're going to need more labs. They're going to be discussion and play areas, factory floor, collaboration, engagement, right? It'll be a space where we will work with humans and robots. And you not only have to learn social skills in this environment, you'll also have to learn how to work with robots, right? So I think, universities are going to just look really different and take away this whole idea of one person standing in front and lecturing to all. I think that form of education just disappears. Your teachers will be experimental partners, and you'll work on interesting things that we are all trying to figure out and solve for the future in an experimental way.
It does make me wonder, for professors who have been used to doing these massive lectures, how are they going to feel about, switching to this model? Kind of training might they have to have as teachers and educators to do that? So really curious. Yeah, it's a whole system redesign of what it'll look like.
Yeah. It excites me a bit, though. It's like, oh wow, that seems like such a luscious way of learning than maybe what we've been doing. So I think, yeah, for educators, it's a scary time, because it is a lot of transition for them. As a learner, I really am excited by the future of learning. And I think how much more affordable it's going to be for all of us, and equalizing the levels around the world.
Okay, so I found this next signal, which was just like, I had no idea this was happening. And it kind of falls beyond just the universities, although universities have a big part to play in it. And it's the idea of a digital credential passport. Or it's like a digital skills passport. So California announced something like this a little while ago. And when I looked into it, several countries already have initiatives like this, where essentially government, universities, or educational institutions and workplace institutions are all working together to create this platform using blockchain that has verified credentials, badges, and certifications that you have as part of your digital identity. And you can go to prospective employers and just kind of hand them, just as you're at the airport, right? You give them your passport, you basically send them your passport that's all verified, and it can just immediately see what proof you have on like what you've done and learned throughout your whole life, which is, I guess, cool, but also really scary to me too. But I found this article that was saying, yeah, like early adopters of this are getting noticed because, we're moving into this whole skills-based hiring economy, and it's accelerating. And so I saw a couple of other statistics that was really interesting, like 45% of employees now are dropping degree requirements in their job descriptions. And that includes not just entry level, but even senior level management positions. And so this idea of this digital passport is going to be even more important. So I saw that there are basically like there are probably more than this, but there were 3 initiatives that I saw. One was by Singapore. The government of Singapore launched a career and skills passport that is now in effect. The EU has piloted what they're calling like a digital learning credential pilot. And MIT has a digital credentials consortium with, I think, like 12 universities around the world. But as an example, since Singapore already launched theirs, they announced it back in November. And as of now, already 315,000 people have used it. And of the employers that have used it, 80% said that it helped fast track candidates by helping them find pre-verified candidates and like helping them shortlist them. So really, really interesting stuff. And it requires, like you said, people are going to have to learn from all different kinds of institutions. Right now, you've got LinkedIn where it's kind of self-reported, and yeah, like some of the credentials you can post there, things like that that are verified. But this is basically a way to secure your data, and you own your data. So one argument was like, you never have to ask for your transcript ever again if you're applying to other graduate schools or what other programs or what have you. So really, really interesting idea. I wonder how, especially in the EU with different languages, right, like how this will be effective, because ideally, as you're thinking about global migration, we talked about that people may be choosing universities or even workplaces in other countries, other languages, like how can we kind of integrate these different platforms, and maybe blockchain can do it. So super interesting.
It's so incredible that so many places are doing this. I'm definitely going to look into that. And Sue, yeah, we spoke about the death of the resume before. And here we go, just again saying you don't need the resume. And I was just thinking about it, like you said, the transcripts, it's such a pain, not just having to like find that and send that on whenever you're applying for something, but also our degree certificates, like they're literally a piece of paper, right? And if you lose that, it is incredibly difficult and incredibly expensive to replace that. Let's adopt better practices around that. I think that leads into second signal I had. The theme of this signal was on demand, in demand. And it speaks exactly to the micro-credentialing and to skills-based learning. I think that's very much the future, right? And things like these digital credential passports are only going to make it easier and even more attractive for employers. But I think the reality is that what we need is small bursts of really practical, really relevant information. The stackable certificates, all those things that work very different to a degree that is so incredibly structured and so little room to change your subject in the second or third year. I think companies will dictate what we learn as well. And so I think a path for a lot of people will be that instead of this college degree, it's like, that's the company I want to join. And the company will dictate what skills, and they'll partner with different companies to do this. And there are a few out there already. So one of the examples is a company called Degreed. And they do skills-based hiring training. But their whole ethos is, they work so much faster. So they work with some of the biggest companies. And it's like, okay, tell us what your people need to learn and how quick, and we get it done. So another company called Interplay Learning, and they do immersive skills-based trade learning. So if it's a certain type of trade and you need people need to learn much faster, they do a much better job now than necessarily, okay, let me go and sign up and take 2 years to go and learn the skill, and have the certificate. Soft skills are going to be pushed aside. I think that university model I spoke about might be the space to do that. And our communities might be the space to do that, where we can come together in other different ways to kind of collaborate and talk and share. And I think that's where people will learn their soft skills. I don't think you'll be learning it in terms of the type of, the way we can learn practical and theoretical information. That's going to be fast. It's going to be gamified. I can imagine a situation where a company takes you on for a year. They give you and they dictate what you're going to learn in that year. But it's also a test. And your resume becomes that year where you get to learn, but they also get to see what you're about and the reputation you earn. That's your resume. And literally a piece of paper is not going to get you in the door anymore. So it's really interesting. I think assessments also are going to become very practical. For example, there's a company called Workera. It's an AI company, and they test you on the actual stuff you're doing in the job you're doing in those scenarios, not generalized learning and the kind of tests and essays. Oh my gosh, how many essays did we write in university, Sue, right? I think there's some interesting companies in the sector. I think companies are going to play a critical role here. It's all about what work I do, what skill I need, and getting access to learn it really quickly.
But I'm wondering, Raakhee, with this move into a more tech-based platform and just really these massive disruptive changes that may come, what do we lose? Like what would students be losing as a result?
Yeah, I think, university was, I think the highlight for all of us in terms of like core friendships. right? It's about identity finding. The question is, where do we get that social experience? How do we get young people together like that? I still think the university buildings can be a hub for that, but I think it does need to integrate the community a bit more. And I think it shouldn't just be about young people. We're an aging population as well. And I think it should be a space where young people, older people all come together. I saw an interesting article where kids maybe like 10 years old, 10, 11, who struggling with certain loneliness, not fitting in class or just too much screen time. And they're pairing them up. This is an interesting sort of mentoring relationship. They're pairing them up with like kids who are in kindergarten and who are 4 and 5. And it's worked so beautifully because it's brought a lightness to these kids. And that the perspective of these 4-year-olds and universities might be these cultural hubs where there will be children and there will be elder people and young people, and we collaborate together and learn to kind of respect each other and build those social skills.
Yeah, I see this juxtaposition living in a big college town with a huge sports fandom of so many alumni who come back week after week to attend football games. When you change a university model like that, will you still have college sports the way they do to create that kind of pride and the way that alumni feel about a university? I think it'll be even more important for colleges to really find like the cultural anchors.
Yeah, it's hard to even imagine how that'll change. The last question then, I guess, for you is, would you say that it's the death of the 4-year degree now?
It's hard not to see that going forward unless there's some massive changes. Generally speaking, there's still going to be a lot of reasons people need to get 4-year degrees depending on the profession you're in. But for so many of the reasons you put forth at the beginning of our discussion, it's now we're going to see exactly like you said, just massive changes over the next couple of years.
I think it is the death of the 4-year degree. Learning is going to exist, absolutely. This whole idea of this 4-year degree that you have to do subjects in this order, I don't think it serves us anymore, and I think it's time for it to change. And I'm hoping in 5 years, there's a couple of good universities that are now setting the trend. And I hope in a decade, it's the new norm, Curious as always, what are you thinking? What's coming up for you? If you are going to university or you have a child who's going to university, what are you thinking about? What questions are you asking yourself as you make these big decisions at this junction that we are at right now? As always, thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you again next week. Bye for now.